What happens when you see two shows and you don't care enough to do separate reviews for them? You do a combined review. What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from BackTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, I'm going to talk about the pilots, the two new shows that dropped this week. One of them is Doc, which on Fox, which ports to Hulu without audio description. And the other one is Shifting Gears, which originally airs on ABC, which ports to Hulu with audio description. Yay. So, strap in and let's talk about these two new shows. First off, because I think more people want to hear about Shifting Gears, we're going to do Doc first. So, yeah, I have not been really excited about almost every single new show Fox has had since they started canceling the 911 franchise. Like, I keep trying their shows, and it's hard because they don't have audio description on Hulu. And they keep throwing things at me, and I'm just like, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. I wasn't a fan of Accused. I wasn't a fan of Rescue High Surf. I'm trying to think of, there's another, I know there's another one that they did somewhat recently. There was Murder in a Small Town, which was okay. I kind of wish it had been more uh long form, because like when I got into like later episodes, I was like, oh, these are all going to be murders all in this small town. Fun. What a dangerous small town to live in. um it's almost like the premise works if you focus, like if you make it like an anthology type series and just do like different small towns with different sheriffs. But then when you realize it's a small town where there's lots of murder, like it's funny when we talk about how all of the Law and Order franchises are all in New York, and you're like, when you really think about and compile all of the Law and Order episodes, there's a lot of crime in New York City. A lot. But yeah, but when you have one series about a small town that has like a murder every week, it's just like, come on now. Come on. Anyway, so Doc is it's not a remake of Billy Ray Cyrus, first of all. That's the first thing I want to clear up. If you watched PAX TV, old, fuck me. If you watched PAX back in the day and you know what the hell I'm talking about, this isn't that. This is a new show called Doc with Molly Parker playing a um I don't want to get into any I even when I was thinking about it while watching the episode, I was like, is this being unfair to women? Like if this was a dude, I was like, if this was a dude, I'd still not like the dude. So I'm gonna use the term abrasive. She she's an abrasive sort of bedside manner. She's very sort of curt in nature when we meet her. And not the B word, not that. She's not mean. She's just not fun. Not fun to have around, which made her for sort of an interesting series lead. I was like, well, this will be. It's not like House, where there was a bit of sort of like a wink and a nod to it, where it's like, I'm mean, but almost in a cute, cartoonish way. Like this weird sort of like balance. No, she's just very like by the book rules. uh I don't play, I don't play games. What is fun, that kind of thing. And she gets in a car accident. She's highly respected and super way up the chain. Gets in a car accident, loses her memory, but not all of it. Basically, she loses 8 years of her life, the last 8 years, which are really important. And she can remember everything up to that point, but not everything after that point. It's odd. It's an odd timeline to pick, and I kind of want to stick with the series just to see why 8 years. Like, why this moment? It does kind of feel like a random amount of time to pick, to be like, you couldn't, because you could say the last year of your life feels sort of more like a plot. 8 seems like you picked that for a reason, and I don't know why. It's just like a random 13. How many? I don't know, 7. Like, is there significance to the number? Um, but one of the things that works for the pilot, which also stars Scott Wolf, in the names you'll recognize category, one of the things that works for the doc pilot is that because she has a traumatic brain injury, lots of things have to be explained in ways that don't necessarily feel like massive exposition, which we're going to talk about in a second. I promise. So, it's one of those things that actually works naturally when you have somebody who has like a head trauma and you're trying to like reintroduce them to life. And there's a lot of explaining because they don't remember things. So, like, she's reintroduced to her family. She's like, "Can I see my family?" "They're not really your family anymore. You and your husband actually got a divorce several years ago because of blah, 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 blah. And this is your daughter. And where's my son?" "Well, we have something to tell you." Like, um, so there's a lot of exposition when somebody loses their memory, but it all feels like natural exposition because of the situation. So this pilot actually becomes a little bit more of an effective pilot just because of the way that the show is crafted. As far as it being able to be understood, um, I mean, I picked up on sort of what it was putting down. The problem with it is that it has an ensemble around her, and that's kind of where I was getting lost, was trying to follow all of these other characters, and the fact that they were still working on other medical cases. I was like, why is this central story not interesting enough to carry the plot? Like, why is there anything else that's happening in this show right now? Why? Um, so one of them makes sense because it's the case she was working on pre-car accident, and then so it turns around on her and she gets to see, even though she doesn't know she was working on the case, she gets to see sort of like how the work that she did gave a positive effect. So she's like, "Oh shit, I am a good doctor. I need to get back into this," like that kind of thing. When I guess, when you lose 8 years of your life and you're back to a different place and you're having to go through like the 5 stages of grief again. Um, so it's interesting. I wish it had audio description, but then again, I wish Hulu had audio description for all of the Fox shows. That would be nice. It feels a little bit better, a little bit more like somebody tried here than some of the Fox shows. Fox seems to be canceling their higher rated shows and putting out cheaper content. Like, that solves the network problem with the ratings and everything. Like, well, we don't have the ratings, so. And it's kind of what the CW is doing. Like, the CW is just porting shows from other countries. They're not really making new shows anymore. I mean, All American is like the last vestige of the CW that's on there, the old CW anyway. So they're just buying shows from other countries and slapping them on there and being like, "Isn't this what you want? This is." And it's like, I mean, that's what the other streamers do, is they get content from Canada, the UK, Australia, and then they brand it as their original content, and then they're like, "Look what we did." That's basically what the CW is doing. So Fox is like a hop, skip, and a jump away from that. They're just producing like low quality content. Like, it feels weird that Molly Parker just got a series like this late in her career. She's been around for a while, you know. I mean, I'm happy for her, and Scott Wolf too. Like, dude's long. These are not hot commodities. These are not people who are right, like, striking out on the TV front. They can't take Molly Parker out to upfronts and be like, "Who wants to buy the new Molly Parker show?" Great actress, but it's not the same thing. So, um, I Doc, I'm gonna go with unwatchable due to lack of audio description because of the ensemble nature of the thing. Followed the main plot of it because it's, again, it explains a lot because it has to. So it's very, but it's not going to always do that. That's the reality, is that every episode that feeds out after this. So if you're not willing to watch it live, which I'm not even sure if it airs live with audio description, but if you don't want to watch it live, I wouldn't watch it. So, but my like floating grade for this would be maybe like a C plus. Like, I think it's better than like Rescue High Surf and some of the other things that I've seen recently. The one that I can't even remember what it's called, um, that I jumped out of, that was sort of like found. Um, but moving on to shifting gears. Thank you for staying around. Now you get to hear about Tim Allen's new show. So Tim Allen's new show with Kat Dennings is really riding high on Tim Allen's success rate. And he kind of feels like he just keeps doing the same thing, like the same version of his character, but that works for him. And I was thinking about like a contemporary of his in some ways is like Ted Danson, who has hopped around from TV show to TV show. But like every time he does it, it's a different character, and he has long running TV shows, and he has memorable characters in TV shows, but they're all different. And I don't know why Tim Allen can't do that. Like, I don't know why Tim Allen is constantly just playing the greatest hits. Um, yeah, Home Improvement ran for what, 9 seasons, and Last Man Standing ran for, I believe, 7. So shifting gears, if we keep the downward trend of losing 2 seasons, could run for 5. So um, I think it's ABC's way of sort of trying to rope in sort of a red state crowd, which is what Tim Allen appeals to as a well-known Republican, and he's playing that character here, and ABC lets him do that. They let him have sort of those political views, leaning mostly as in like a non-offensive way. Like he's not standing there just being like, you know, transgender athletes are ruining the country. It's nothing like that. He's just finding ways to be sort of a grumpy man whose political views are pretty clear. And Kat Dennings comes in and is the antithesis of that, which is kind of what she always is. So to be fair, Kat Dennings is kind of doing what Kat Dennings does in everything she's ever done. So you have two people who they found two people and then they wrote a show around them. So they just put them into this like dealership. They could be anywhere. This show is not uniquely about cars in the way that Tim Allen, when he was first in Home Improvement, it felt like Tool Time was like bleeding out of that show. I mean, that man walked around the house like he was going to repair and fix something. Tim Allen in the pilot of this show sort of talks about cars, but not nearly to the extent that you would expect somebody who owns a car dealership, or somebody who, one of the charms of Home Improvement was that he was this everyman who like repaired things in the house and still had a family with kids and had this wife. And I fucking love Home Improvement. They can never revive that show. It'll never happen because I don't even know what it would look like, because 2 of the 3 kids will never be allowed to act again. And he can't just make a show with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. And Patricia Richardson has said she won't come back. So I honestly don't even know what that show would look like conceptually. So I guess this, but with just one kid. I literally in the news the other day, it was like Zachary Ty Bryan punched a woman in the face, and I'm like, well, this is why we don't have a Home Improvement reboot, a revival. This is why we have shifting gears. So Kat Dennings comes into play, and she has kids, and she has left her husband, who her dad never approved of, and is like, can I stay here for a little while? It's very clunky. The introduction is very clunky. It's literally one of the worst openings I think to have seen to a show. This and Happy's Place both have terrible pilots. The pilots are so clunky, so poorly written. It's like nobody knew how to get to the concept. They were like, "Well, this is what the show is about." They're like, "I don't know how to write this. You mean I have 20 minutes to explain this in a pilot?" And it's just like they can't do it. Like the people who were in charge of Happy Place and Shifting Gears cannot do it. Now, what I will say is that unlike Happy's Place, which seems to be riding, sorry to fans of her co-star that's from Reba, but it's riding solely on Reba McEntire, that show. Her co-stars are not great. And they're not written well, and the writers are not. I'm like 8 episodes deep into that show, and it's not getting any better. This one, because they let Tim Allen be Tim Allen and Kat Dennings be Kat Dennings, you have two people who have both been in successful sitcoms that have run for multiple seasons doing their thing. So if you like them doing their thing, this isn't the most inventive way for them to do their thing, but at least it satisfies that. I do wish there's a moment here where Tim Allen gets to act, where he gets to talk about like a memory that he has of his late wife, and it's the most acting I've seen him do, I think, in his career, like dramatically, and it made me wish he had done more. It made me wish he had a different show with different writers because, like I said, Ted Danson goes from Cheers into what, like Becker, and he was in CSI, and he had, oh God, he had that HBO show whose name escapes me right now, but would have totally helped to remember. The Good Place. You know, now he's on Man on the Inside, and I'm sure I forgot a show in there, but like each character is different, and yet he doesn't really need to do film. He just keeps kind of bouncing around from TV show to TV show. He's not wildly different in each character, but he's different enough. And yet people are still drawn to Ted Danson. And I think that's true about Tim Allen. I think there's something about Tim Allen that he just needs to trust in his own screen presence, because when he does it outside in the film world and things like the Santa Claus, you know, he's not leaning in on pushing back against culture, railing against, you know, the news or whatever. He's just playing sort of like a really relatable male figure for a lot of people. So, and then he's also done, you know, some comedies like Big Trouble with Rene Russo, Ben Foster, and a bunch of other people. And I mean, not like the most classic sitcom, not well comedy ever, but it's different. It's a different character for him, and of course, his Buzz Lightyear character is different. So he has range. It's just every time we give him a sitcom, it's like he always has to be this one thing. And it's so weird because this is paired with Abbott Elementary. And I'm like, for live airings, what audience overlap are you hoping for? It's Shifting Gears and Abbott Elementary. First of all, they're not even the same camera format. So you have sort of what's happening right now with Ghosts being paired with George and Mandy. It's so weird because they have nothing to do with each other. They're completely different formats. Like they likely attract largely different audiences. So like you have people who are not, there's no longer is it that they're are they trying to get that audience that like holds over, you know, that bleeds into the next show. I think they just realize everybody's streaming now and they don't care about live airings because Shifting Gears and Abbott Elementary is one of the weirdest pairings, but it's also you have Georgie and Mandy with Ghosts, which is a really weird pairing. It just is. So they're not alone. Um, I mean, I could say the same thing about St. Denis Medical being paired with Night Court. Like, again, two completely different camera formats. So we're having a hard time here programming. We don't quite understand how to do this. If anything, they should trade St. Denis Medical and put that next to Abbott Elementary. Those shows make sense together. So, yeah, this is, I didn't hate it. And like I said, it gets a little bit better as the show gets room to breathe. And I think every time there's a couple supporting people who work in this shop, plus the kids. And what I will say here is I think everybody is well cast. That's where the pilot steps up for me a little bit. Versus Happy's Place is that every time we got to speak to a character who wasn't Tim Allen or Kat Dennings, who wasn't the draw, I liked them. Like, I wasn't like, oh God. The girl that's opposite uh, Reba is not on Reba's level in Happy's Place. She's just not. They didn't get somebody who was on her level. Her friend in that show, who's not the co-lead, is the closest thing, and that's the one that they pulled from Reba. I can't think of the actress's name. Um, so that's where Happy's Place just kind of struggles. Here, Kat Dennings and Tim Allen can actually bounce off of each other pretty well. And then when you break out from them, the kids are well cast, and the people who work in the shop are well cast. So I actually didn't hate this. It's not my favorite Tim Allen sitcom, but then again, I didn't like Last Man Standing right away, and then I ended up watching all 7 seasons of that. So who knows? But then again, that had Nancy Travis, which was, like kind of a big thing for that show. I mean, like when you have somebody who um, really sort of lands in, who seems to understand what made Patricia Richardson work, what what she offered to Home Improvement. I feel like Nancy Travis did that for Last Man Standing. Here, they're doing it without a mom. There's no, uh, he's a widower. So uh, I don't know how this is going to play without that character missing. His last two shows have worked so integrally because of Patricia Richardson and Nancy Travis that with that character missing and him just having kids and grandkids, I don't know. So check out Shifting Gears, but I do have to say the audio description is fantastic. I am so happy. It's got, you know, um, one of my favorite narrators is doing the show, and it's not. I was so happy. I was like, oh God, is he working for that company, Vitek, that's doing like all of the other ABC shows, and like they're all just like, eh. It's like, no, it's not Vitek. It's like Zoo Digital. And thank you, ABC, for hiring other companies to do your work. Because Abbott Elementary's audio description is just not good. I want it to be. I want it to be so much better than this. But if we could have the same narrator on Shifting Gears and Abbott Elementary, I think the world would be better for it. Food for thought about next season. If you're thinking about keeping these shows together. Um, anyway, that's it. So, um, Shifting Gears, I liked it better than Doc. It's not a great sitcom, but it has some promise to it. I'll give it a B minus. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you guys on the other side.